Verse 5 went on to affirm the prophecy that this power was destined to remain all-powerful in temporal sovereignty, again, for 40 and 2 prophetical months. We've already seen the 1,260 years using the day for a year principle. I believe it will be reinforcing once again to examine the primary. I believe, even though we looked at 3 historic periods and the tripart nature overlapping succinctly of its devastation, but I believe that primary period, just my humble opinion, other scholars differ, and I recognize that, was dealing in the year 533 AD with the decree of the Eastern Emperor Justinian. He elevated the Bishop of Rome to, quote, the head of all the holy churches and of all the holy priests of God. Now, up to this time, the bishops, of all the various dioceses were looked upon as being on equal footing in all parts of Christendom. However, the emperor decided that the Roman bishop should have preeminence. This decree by the Emperor Justinian was an important event for the Bishop of Rome because it paved the way for the first popes to rise, namely Boniface III, who is named by the great Greton Gonesse in his well-known, well, it's not so well-known now, but it was for a long time, book, The Approaching End of the Age. He names him the first pope and gives a history of why. And then when the 1,260-year period is applied to 533 AD, we come to the year 1793, in the time and the starting of the upheaval of the French Revolution, which marked the beginning of the end of papal temporal power, especially in France, her eldest daughter. In the earliest centuries, France had slaughtered or exiled her Protestants. And as I mentioned, was historically known as the Vatican's eldest daughter. And there's reasons for this. And you go back into the time of Pepin and all that history. But now there was a complete change in the period in the French Revolution. France did just the reverse. Within 5 years, 2 million people are slain. According to historians, 24,000 priests were murdered. 40,000 churches were turned into stables. Not only that, but the impact of the revolution spread to all other Roman Catholic nations in Europe by means of the press and revolutionary agents. France never fully recovered from the effects of that terrible revolution, and the power of the Roman Catholic Church was shattered in that country. The French Revolution is one of the most horrific events of history. Verse 6. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, to overcome them. And power was given over all kindreds and tongues and nations. History reveals that literally millions, and some great historians estimate up to 50 million, lost their lives either as martyrs or those who fought in opposition to the papal regime and its claim to make war with the saints. In Fox's Book of Martyrs, and if you haven't read it, you need to read it, and Dr. Gonnesse's The Approaching End of the Age, we have several outlines, we have several summaries of the persecution suffered by the true church, the remnant of the seed of the woman at the hands of this beast. Here's just a few, and I mean a few. You could walk into libraries And they are full of this history, of this slaughter. From 1237 to 1342, you have tens of thousands of Vaudois massacred in northern Italy by order of the Pope. 1300 to 1413, terrible persecution of the Lollards in England by order of the Pope. 1421, thousands of Protestant Hussites in Bohemia killed by order of the Pope. 1481 to 1808, the Spanish Inquisition burned alive over 31,000 people and tortured over 300,000. In 1488, in Piedmont, 3,000 Vaudois burnt and suffocated to death in a cave. 1546, Emperor Charles V causes 50,000 Fleming and German Protestants to be hanged, burned, or buried alive. 1555 in England, Bloody Mary, she kills 288. 1567, the Duke of Alva in the Netherlands, remember the Spanish revolt and all that we've talked about? He executes 36,000 Protestants. 1572, the massacre of St. Bartholomew's Day in France, 60,000 butchered in one day. 1631, over 20,000 German Protestants massacred in Magdeburg, Germany. 1641, in Ireland, the Roman Catholics, they proclaim a war of religion in which 40,000 Protestants were martyred without mercy. 1658, the French dragoons butchered 400,000 Huguenot Protestants, while 500,000 unfortunately managed to escape to Britain. 1686, over 11,000 Protestant Vaudois put to death in northern Italy. That's just a sample. That is a minute sample of what transpired over those 1,260-day years. So no wonder the prophet Daniel contemplated in amazement and inquired, how long shall it be till the end of these wonders? And I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever that it shall be. Here we go again. For a time, times and a half, and when he, and we're talking about the beast, the man of sin, the wicked one, the little horn, the Antichrist, shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. That's Daniel chapter 12, verses 6 and 7. Verse 8 of Daniel 13. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life, the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. And he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Popes of Rome led many into captivity. They themselves were finally led into captivity as a result of the effects of the French Revolution. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte, we're going to see him called out specifically in the vials, affected the conquest of Italy, and the Pope, a prisoner, was a supplicant at his feet. In 1804, he ordered the Pope, who was now his puppet, to come to France and crown him Emperor of the French. In 1805, he assumed the title King of Italy. During his reign, he ruled the papacy with an iron fist, broke up the old European system, emancipated nations, from the terror of Rome. And by the time Napoleon fell, the temporal authority of Rome had received a fatal wound. To this day, the Pope remains a prisoner of the Vatican. But what we're seeing this day, that we're going to see later in the Revelation, is her crying and proclaiming, hey, I'm a queen again. Nothing's going to happen to me. We shall see. So, technically though, the papacy is still the prisoner of the Vatican. Even though it seems like it's this and that all around within. No, you've had a taste of the power and the influence it had. It is still a prisoner of the Vatican. There it will remain until his utter destruction from the face of the earth. The Scriptures assure us that this will happen. And the prophets will cry, amen. The apostles and the prophets will cry, amen. They will glad to see its day. Verse 11. Then I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. And he spake as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, literally in his presence. And causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, or its paganism, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire coming down from heaven in the earth, come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. He deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, and the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, they should be killed. This second wild beast was not the principal one on the theater of action, but in a manner a subordinate. This lamb-like dragon raises the stakes of this dangerous deception.